Hello and welcome to Unwind Sessions, where right after my shift I give the highlights of my workday and hope to do so soon live with a Q&A. My name is Juan. I am an English, Spanish, medical video remote interpreter with over 4 years of experience. So today is March 19, 2021, and I took about 40 calls today. That's a little bit more calls than yesterday, 8 calls to be precise. And there was a range between video calls and actual phone calls. There were quite a few unique experiences today. I'm gonna tell you about them and how I handled them. The first experience that happened, it was uh, they were going to the provider was going to do a a blood test for the patient, and then she said, all right, so then we're gonna do a blood test to check your cholesterol levels, to check your kidney levels, and to check your liver. And I like I was like, girl, I'm sorry, this is the interpreter speaking. What was the last word you said? And then she said labor, but that didn't sound quite right, you know. I mean, blood test for labor. So I asked again. I asked her, I'm not understanding the last word. And then she said, labor, you know, hígado. So she actually let me know the translation in Spanish. And then I caught it. I was like, oh, liver. Okay, I'm sorry. And I just went ahead with the translation. But that was the only word that I couldn't understand. And it actually took me 3 tries to actually understand what she was saying. And also, uh, I she actually had to tell me what it was in Spanish. I don't know why my brain didn't click. You know, like blood test, liver, labor, but whatever. So nothing major, and I got over it. Uh, Another thing that happened today is that I learned a new word. The word is calcineurin inhibitor. And this in Spanish is called un inhibidor de la calcineurina. And of course, it's a tough word to spell. And I asked the provider, I said, I'm sorry, this is the interpreter speaking, but I am not familiar with the term cal something. That's what I told her. And then she said, oh, don't worry about it. And then I asked her if she could spell it out for my vocabulary. And she said, sure. And then she spelled it out and she told me, if that is not how you spell it, I'm going to have to write it out. But it was, so I spelled it. So, uh, why do I think this is relevant? Because I didn't know the word and I actually had to ask the provider to spell it, and she was very nice and she actually spelled it. And I looked it up and I gave the correct interpretation. But the main thing is that she was not sure of the spelling either. So most providers are like that. They don't expect you to know everything, so it's okay if you don't know everything, and it's okay to ask. So I want you to keep that in mind for your sessions. I mean, you don't have to know everything. Of course, like simple things, you have to know and are expected to know those things. But also, again, if you don't happen to remember a word, I'm gonna talk about this in a little later. But it's okay. It's okay. I mean, we all have brain farts every once in a while, you know. So the inhibitor, also known as a CNI, they are a family of 3 drugs: cyclosporin, tacrolimus, and pimecrolimus. And clinicians use this to suppress the immune system. Out of those 3 medications, I have only worked with cyclosporin and tacrolimus. The other one I did not even know that existed. Another thing that happened today was a word that I didn't know. So the lady was explaining that daughter, her daughter's Cuckoo was sticking to her vagina and to her anus. So I asked the lady, I asked the provider first of all, may I clarify? This is the interpreter speaking. May I clarify something with the patient? And she said, yeah, go ahead. So I asked the lady, I was like, you know what? This is your interpreter speaking, and I am not familiar with the term cuco. Can you explain it to me, or can you use a different word for it? And the lady said, yeah, sure, no problem. And she stated and she explained that this was like the uh, pocket of cloth on women's underwear. And she explained that that was a cuco. I told her thank you, and then I interpreted it as that. I actually did not know the word for it, so I actually described it for the provider, and she understood, and the call went well, and that was the only difficulty that I had in that call. Um, of course, I researched it, and upon research, I came upon the fact that this word is used in Colombia to mean underwear. But the lady was actually using it to describe the um, inside pocket of cloth in a woman's underwear. I actually found out that that is called a gusset for anyone that's interested. I didn't know this. But yeah, she referred to this as that. If we have any viewers here from Colombia and you guys can confirm, I would really appreciate that because as interpreters, you not only need to know the words that are in Spanish, but you also have to learn regionalisms and well, just regionalisms and idioms and stuff from different countries and different regions of the different countries that you work with, that your language pair actually works with. So uh, that's actually a really good that's actually something really good that you are going to come across. There's going to be certain words in Spanish that you have no idea what they mean, and it's okay because as interpreters, of course, you are from a single country most of the time. For example, I'm from Mexico, so of course I'm not gonna know regionalisms from other countries, like Nicaragua, Colombia, and all that stuff. I might, but there are some very different ones. I mean, even across the country, you go from one part of the country to another, and they say a word, and you have no idea what they're talking about. So it's always good to keep up, and always good to write down the regionalisms or the words that are used in different countries. One thing that happens is with Spain. People from Spain speak very differently and use certain words that are correct, but we do not really use them in Mexico, or at least I have never heard of them. And that is always a struggle, but it's always a good learning experience because you expand your vocabulary. So don't be afraid to ask if you don't understand the certain use of a word. And that is a very important thing. Uh, One other thing that happened today is that I was taking a session and the session disconnected. It froze and then it just didn't reconnect. I hung up the session and I was waiting to get another call. And I received another call and it was actually the same person. And I actually like it when that happens because I really feel bad when it gets frozen or it's disconnected and you can't help the people. And one thing is that I've never disconnected a call on my own. I go to lengths to actually finish the calls and everything and actually help the people out and ask for many repetitions or do everything that I can before actually hanging up a call. But I've never had to um, hang up a call where I was like really struggling, unless the providers are like, oh, you know what, the connection's really bad, I'm gonna disconnect. So um, the session froze. The session froze, disconnected. I answered. It was a lady again, and I tried to help her, and then it froze again, and it disconnected. But unfortunately, I did not get the session a third time. This has happened before. Sometimes, when there's not that much of a call volume, sometimes I get connected to like the same hospitals. And this is not the first time that has happened, but I just wanted to mention it. This doesn't happen very frequently. And another thing that the last thing that I'm going to talk about is that I was interpreting, and the for a CT scan, they were using contrast dye, and the gentleman, the nurse or the technician, let the gentleman know that he was going to have a bitter taste, a bitter metallic taste in his mouth. And at that point, I couldn't remember the translation, the Spanish translation for bitter, and I actually used agrio. Now, agrio is a an accepted translation for bitter, but agrio, to me, I think a more precise translation would be sour. So it's a good translation. It's not the best, but I couldn't think of the word, and the first word that came to mind was agrio, sour. So I said agrio, but I was not comfortable with it. I looked it up in Lingui, which I already told you is my go-to dictionary, and it turns out that that is an accepted translation. But amargo is actually the word that I couldn't come up with, and that is like a much better translation. This is going to happen sometimes. You're gonna get stuck on very little words. The best thing you can do is to not get stuck on a word, because if you get stuck on a word, you're gonna miss everything else. If I would have gotten stuck on bitter, then I probably would have missed the rest of the utterance from the technician. So if you can, just like make a note of it and then just move on. Write it down on the notes and don't think much about it. If you can, right after they give you all the information, if you definitely cannot come up with a word, then maybe you can ask the person to give you another word, or just say it a different way. And I am very sorry, that is not really what you should do in this case. I was thinking about something else, like if you don't know the word, but in this case, bitter is a simple word. So it would actually look bad to let the gentleman know to use another word. Actually, what you can do is describe it. For example, if I couldn't have thought of any other synonym for bitter, I could have said, you're gonna have a bad taste, a bad metal taste in your mouth. It's not perfect, but it works, and it's not like super important that it should have been bitter. Little things like that. You can just work with them. Probably just describe them or use a synonym if you don't have the very precise word, and just move on, and everything is going to be okay. So uh, don't worry about that. And well, that was pretty much my day. I hope that you enjoyed it. I would like to thank you very much for watching. Remember that I'm going to be here every Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. Mountain Time to around 6:20 p.m. Mountain Time, and we're going to be doing some Q&A as well right after I finish my wind-up session. My uh, my unwind session, I'm sorry. And well, yeah, that's pretty much for today. I'll see you back on Monday. And if you liked it, please subscribe, like the video, and don't forget to share. Thank you. Have a very great weekend. See you on Monday, and happy interpreting. Goodbye.